Hello everybody, and welcome to our webinar series, Navigating the Cloud. My name is Michelle Nerlinger, and I'll be your moderator today. This is the fifth and final event in a series of webcasts that have explored the most critical aspects of introducing and managing SaaS applications. It's no secret that in order to realize the benefits of the cloud, transitioning from on-premise software to software as a service needs to be quick, have minimal impact on internal operations, and be as transparent as possible to end users. SafeNet and Saugatuck both have spent the past several years working with software publishers, planning to and in the process of migrating their on-premise applications to the cloud. The aim of this webinar is to take the lessons learned from those experiences and define a clear path to migration for software publishers in the future. At the end of this presentation, you'll be confident in your ability to tackle the obstacles associated with cloud service delivery. Our presenters today are Mike West, VP and Distinguished Analyst for Saugatuck Technology, and Todd Steel, Senior Product Manager for SafeNet Software Monetization Solutions. Before we get started, I'd like to remind you that questions can be submitted at any time during the webcast. Simply click the Questions button on your screen and enter your question. We will answer all questions at the end of our webcast. Mike and Todd will, however, have visibility into the questions coming in throughout the course of the webinar and may, in fact, change the direction of the webcast. So please submit your questions as they come up. We also encourage you to share this presentation with your peers at any time during and after the live event using the Share This button you see in the top right-hand corner of your screen. If you'd like to join the conversation on Twitter, please use the hashtag shown on the screen throughout the course of the event. Now, without any further ado, let's get started. Todd, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Michelle. My name is Todd Steel, a Senior Product Manager here at SafeNet, focused on delivering our SaaS cloud solutions. And over the last year and a half, as Michelle mentioned, we've been really focusing on helping our existing customer base and pure-play SaaS companies move to the cloud and identifying the challenges that they have while doing so. Through that experience, we've distilled the challenges really into 6 major categories that you see in front of you. The first is enforcing contract compliance can be costly. And when we say costly here, we're not necessarily talking about a technology cost, but we're talking about a relationship cost. The second one is when you go to market, most services offered today in the cloud really have limited feature bundling, not really addressing the myriad of diverse markets that are being created to consume SaaS-based offerings. The third is as software vendors go to make changes to their packaging, making changes to those packaging requires re-engineering, which is a very costly practice, and it deters from getting to market quickly with new offerings. The fourth is having restrictive, simple subscription-based business models really doesn't help you reach and maximize your profitability in a diversifying market. Manual, complex usage tracking and reporting exists today in the cloud, but it's not really purposed to do business transactions and for better understanding how your customers use your products so that you can better your service overall. And the last is having fragmented operational processes for delivering both on-premise and cloud-based solutions. It becomes an increasingly important event where as you migrate to the cloud, you want one system that helps you manage both your on-premise solutions and your SaaS-based offerings. As Michelle mentioned, today's webinar is the 5th and last in an education series. And we put this together based on our experience helping software vendors monetize their solutions in the cloud. Well, today's webinar will highlight on key areas of success to focus on, and Saugatuck will be leading us with industry insight on why those are the key factors. I'll be then following the Saugatuck session with ways in which technology and good business practice helps you achieve success in those areas. Mike, I'll hand off the presentation to you to get started.
Hi, thanks, Todd. I appreciate your introduction. Let me first introduce Saugatuck Technology. Saugatuck provides subscription research and advisory and strategy consulting to senior business and IT executives, to technology and software vendors, business and IT services providers and to investors. We're all about helping our clients make better business decisions and create new business value through trusted and objective insights into key market trends and emerging technologies that are driving change in the industry. And over the past few years, this has been a major focus on software as a service, cloud infrastructure, and social computing, among other key trends. I would invite you to check out our new website that went live today, and that's www.Saugatuck Technology. That's all one word, and it's spelled S-A-U-G-A-T-U-C-K, and then technology.com. And when you get there, check out our blog, Lens 360, and sign up for free research alerts if you're so inclined. Our most recent and extensive research on business strategies and models is focused on the important business and technology considerations for ISVs adopting SaaS strategies. You know, not to be outdone by their pure play SaaS brethren. Todd, am I supposed to advance the slides, or is somebody else doing that for me?
Yep, that's you, Mike.
It's me?
Yep.
And how do I do that?
There's a next slide button on the bottom of the panel.
Oh, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for not being able to read. Not to be outdone by their pure play SaaS brethren, the traditional ISVs are now adopting SaaS strategies, and some of you may be among them. And some under hybrid business models, and others cutting the cord and fully transforming their businesses. Whichever you are, the slide in front of you is extremely relevant. You can see from this the decline that we've picked up in our survey, the most recent survey, and it's consistent with what we've done over the past several years in terms of investment in on-premise software versus investment in cloud-based solutions that do the same thing or something even more interesting. And so as we see through 2014, the rise of cloud-based software. And so as firms look at this and consider the reality of the fact that the market for on-premise software is shrinking, that the market for cloud-based solutions of one kind or another is accelerating really, and perhaps even faster than this slide just depicts. How do you take advantage of that? How do you manage the transition from today's business model and today's operational processes to a new reality going forward? All firms that are doing this have to be aware of who their buyers are and what their buyers expect. On the buyer side of things, you have to bear in mind that enterprise buyers are also in transition because they've got largely on-premise solutions, and now they have to somehow manage a transition to the cloud as a solution provider, and then putting that somehow together with the stuff they have on-premise, integrating it in a meaningful way, workflow and data. So how I think the ISV can help the customer manage that transition is kind of a key to success going forward. You've got to think about how you manage your own internal processes. How do you handle the operational changes? How do you manage the transition to Salesforce? How do you understand and handle the new relationship with the customer? What new product offerings can you bring to market? But at the same time, how are you going to enable your customers to make effective use of the business value that you intend to deliver? Because if they can't realize the business value from your solution and there are impediments to their transitioning themselves to a hybrid architecture, then maybe your solution won't be as valued. Maybe your solution won't be as preferable as one from somebody who does. So What do buyers expect? Well, of course, they expect cost savings, better, faster, cheaper. They also are looking for agility and quality, as these numbers indicate. The overwhelming majority of respondents expect cost savings, and then the next group, agility and quality. But they expect more than that. They also expect to get a hold of some capabilities that the cloud offers that are unique to the cloud, such as the ability to span geographies and unite people, some of the synergies with social networking and other cloud-based solutions, a variety of things that buyers expect. So this transition is not just on the ISV side, it's on the buyer side, and you need to be aware of what it is they expect if you want to have a successful transition yourselves. So let's take a look, though, at some of the key issues for ISVs to focus on as they move to the cloud and want to win with SAFF. So the point I've just made is that hybrid architectures are the future, and we call them highly interwoven because they become more interdependent in terms of what the cloud can offer and what the on-premise solution can offer. And you can read the bullets here as well as I can, but you know, the last bullet in that first section, traditional on-premise players need to make sure that the new value proposition not only leverages the existing installed software, customer heritage, and I've spoken about that, but that the new value added is created and delivered to truly incent existing and new customers to take a serious look and take action. So what is the increment of new value that you're providing through a cloud offering? One of the things we suggest to on-premise ISVs is that you may want to just offer complementary solutions that will leverage what you've already been selling into your customer base. That's a great way to get going with them, and then you can augment from there. But over time, you know, the cloud will consume more and more buyer dollars and on-premise less and less. And at the same time, the relationship with the customer changes. The relationship and the customer shifts from, oh, I'm on the other side of the wall catching the disk as they throw it over to me and installing it and managing it myself and hiring all the people to keep the system running and so on to, you know, I've got a fundamentally different relationship with my provider. I expect them to know my needs. I expect them to handle my interests you know, with appropriate care and reverence. In other words, you know, I'll get SLAs, but I want more than just SLAs. I'll get security, but I want more than security. I want privacy. I want consideration. I want them to know my name. In fact, I've talked to a number of ISVs who say, big surprise for them was how many customers they know by their first name now compared to in the old software era. Because the ISV now is not just a software producer, but also a services provider. And so it's critical to understand the expectations of the customer with respect to that level of intimacy that is created in the cloud. And then finally, the third point on this slide, and one that I'm sure SafeNet can contribute to, and that is continuously reducing your operational costs. This is critical. You will launch a cloud offering, and you know, much like the traditional learning curve that you hear about in business school, you want to squeeze costs down over time by more efficient processes. And a lot of cloud companies actually turn their R&D dollars, many of their R&D dollars, toward finding ways of more efficient operations as a way to create profitability over the long term. One of the ways that many of the successful cloud providers continuously reduce costs is through partnering, through finding people who can do things cheaper than you can do because that's all they do, and they do it really well. It's their point of excellence, and you're going to have your proposition, your point of excellence, and you might as well leverage the other excellence that you can find in the cloud, other providers who can give you capabilities that exceed your own, such as, for instance, SafeNet in the area of licensing. So this is a set of key issues for ISVs to focus on to win with SaaS. And let's bear in mind that this is a dynamic transformation. This slide is meant to depict on the left the cloud provider and on the right the enterprise, both in transformation, both changing. And so the evolving providers are enabling a variety of benefits to the enterprise. And they include revenue expansion, shift from capital to operations, quicker time to market, lower cost of operations, increased profits, virtual value chains, distributed organizations, and enabling some cloud-based startups. This high impact on enterprises really causes them to have to change the way they actually do business, not just the way they do operational processes, but the way they think about their products and solutions, the way they think about their customers. But it also requires them to get from their providers a whole set of things, including innovative solutions, mature functionality, integration capability, cross-solution workflow, composite solutions, high availability. This is critical. And transparency and SLAs, backup recovery, and development platforms to allow them to augment what they can get off the shelf in the cloud. So these robust solutions, it's a loop. Meanwhile, the evolving providers are transforming themselves in the financial dimension, in the technology dimension, in the operations, in the organization, and in the culture. So this is a very dynamic process of interdependency and transformation in both realms. Now, as you transition from an on-premise ISV to a cloud provider, there are a whole range of questions, and I mentioned that there's financial and technology and operational and organizational and cultural things that have to change. But I've just got a few sort of key questions here to trigger, and it could be a lengthy discussion here on, how do we evolve the business model? Are we going to cut the cord and go directly to the cloud, or are we going to try to transition with supplementary revenues from the cloud that complement what we continue to draw on from our cash cow, let's say, from the on-premise products? And if that's the case, it has implications. How do I organize for that? Obviously, ripples through. What technologies will I need? Ripples through. How do my operations change? Ripple through. And what kind of culture can I maintain? Do I need two separate organizations? Do I need a cloud organization with a separate sales force that gets compensated differently? Do I need a support organization that behaves differently and has different incentives? Do I need to have a new platform, or can I make use of a platform that's already out there? What do I have to do for myself? What can I do with partners? So there are a range of questions that spin out from this decision, and of course the financial or the business model decision drives everything. And so a real coherent plan needs to be formed as to how the company will evolve. Each one of these 5 dimensions of transformation offers multiple opportunities to increase the top line by driving increasing revenue, or the bottom line through cost savings by partnering to increase revenue or reduce costs. So let's look a little further at this partnering imperative in the next slide. The partnering imperative, like the transformation idea, has to stem from a single point, basically, and that single point is, what is our core value proposition as a company? I mean, why would people get something from us, and what is it that we provide to them that's really the business value? And then having understood that, and having understood, what are our crown jewels, in effect, what's the real key to our success going forward. Other stuff, which we do, might not be as important for us to do if we can find somebody else to do it for us. so, you know, then the opportunity comes to, how much of this can we outsource to partners, and by doing so, gain leverage, because that's what they do. That's their core value proposition, and that not only do they do it better than we do, but they do it faster and cheaper and better. So the opportunity to outsource to partners immediately appears. And then the other thing is that it's not just the operational advantages, but maybe we can drive additional top-line revenue by partnering. You know, what markets can we enter more efficiently or effectively with partners? And, you know, how can we work with them to increase our top-line revenue? So, you know, what we're talking about here is improving our cost of operations, improving our top line, our revenues, and then how can we increase our agility, our innovation and synergy through partnering, so that effective partnering always shifts what I call the figure-ground relationship between, you know, what is our core value proposition and what are the sort of matrix of things around that that make it possible, and that's sort of the figure-ground. And so what we're looking to do is focus our attention more on our core value proposition and find ways to partner around the matrix of things that make our core value proposition possible. Profitable and growing cloud providers increase revenue and reduce costs by partnering. So then, how do we leverage partners to increase solution value? I think it's pretty clear that we can, you know, save money if we find partners who can do stuff for us that's better than what we normally can do it for, or faster, or something like that. And that's where a company like SafeNet could come in with the whole license management thing. But there's another dimension here to think about, and that is, how do we leverage partners to increase our solution value? I have here a sort of continuum, if you will, of aggregation. I'm calling it the cloud aggregator spectrum. And at the left, I have a way in which partnering can increase your core solution value. Now, you're going to have your core solution value, something that you create, and it's your IP, and it's your business knowledge that's delivered through technology in the cloud, right? But you can also increase that value and increase the value of you to your customers in their transition by adding things to it. And the simplest way in which you can do that is a straight-ahead reseller relationship. So you become a reseller of some service that's complementary to what it is you're offering, and it's a pass-through, in effect, of a solution that may be cloud-driven by another cloud provider, but you partner with them and you aggregate it with what you offer. That is the simplest level at which this cloud aggregation can take place. Then you can go a step further and you can say, well, you know, I want to integrate these two solutions to provide some synergy. And so then the next level up is the sort of the integrator of solutions, integrator aggregator model. And then the third one is, I'm going to add some additional value. I have my core thing, I have what they're providing, but I'm going to add some additional IP to tweak it to make it even better, or I'm going to put some services on it or something. But so then the value-added reseller has not only aggregated additional solutions and integrated them, but added solutions and services to it. And then finally, at the far right, we have a sort of VAR MSP, managed services provider version of the thing, where aggregating solutions, integrating, adding IP, adding services, and then offering to manage it for the customer. Now, there's a company called Aperio that does this out there with Salesforce and Google and Workday, creating composite solutions together with their own IP, and then reselling that solution to a number of providers and then offering to manage it as well. So this is an example of that, you know, the far extreme on the right. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the opportunities to partner for increased revenue and lower costs, you know, are there. And as you go from left to right on this spectrum, they get greater. So there's additional margin every step you take towards the right on this. And this is a way to increase your top line in addition to the bottom line. Of course, if you do this, then you're going to need some help from a license management operation like SafeNet. So, in a way, complexity comes with, increasing your top line potential. Let's take a look at the ongoing challenges you'll face. This is my final slide in which I'm trying to wrap it up here and hand it off to Todd for his presentation. In this transition, as you're meeting the needs of your transitioning customers, you're going to face some ongoing challenges, and some of these are pretty obvious and some of them are not so obvious. The first one is, and it seems obvious, but retain and grow the customer relationship. That's really, at the core of it, because profitability in the cloud increases over time. Not only will you become operationally leaner, but because you won't have the sales costs, in the same degree in successive years of renewal, profitability of any given customer relationship will increase. And you'll be probably adding additional seats as your solution gains, popularity within that organization, and potentially your complementary offerings, such as the aggregated offerings I suggested before, including services, will get traction there too. So the idea is, in terms of customers, to innovate and increase the perceived value of your solution, because you may have a good solution, but it's how do your customers regard it, and how are you helping them to meet their challenges in migrating to a hybrid organization themselves. And then in terms of operations, obviously, you've got to build an effective sales team, business development team, and partnering team. I mean all three of those things here. When I say business development, it's a complex function in the cloud. You've got to also manage down your cost of operations, and we talked about that, and I've given the example of license management, and that's SafeNet's specialty, which of course isn't yours, or hope it isn't. And then finally, establish customer loyalty by over-delivering a perceived value beyond the core solution, by proactive interaction, by creating community, and thereby increasing stickiness and so forth. So the idea is to over-deliver, to take the extra step for your customers, who will reward you by retention, by increasing the seats, and by buying into your complementary offerings. And then with partners, you're going to reduce costs by finding more efficient producers for operational tasks. That's a given. But you can also deliver broader and more complete solutions by aggregating value, as I pointed out in that continuum slide one back. And then finally, innovate through creative partnering synergies. There are lots of opportunities out there that you will come across. Keep an open mind and be aware always that if you can increase your perceived value to your customer, make their transition in this really disruptive era that we're passing through a little bit easier, you're going to have loyal customers, increased revenue, and a much better shot going forward. So again, as I pointed out before, we launched our new website today. Invite you to drop in, www.saugatucktechnology.com. You can see the URL at the bottom of this slide. Check out our blog, which is called Lens 360. It's the tab farthest to the right on that site, and do sign up for free research alerts. And let me pass now the baton to Todd.
Thank you very much, Mike. So what's next in the presentation? Just to review, is as Mike discussed in his presentation, there were three main factors in this slide. Really easing the transition with hybrid, which I'll cover, reducing your operational costs, and I'll cover how technology and best practices do that. And then lastly, how to continually increase your customer intimacy. So first, let's look at hybrid. So what is hybrid and why do we care? Well, hybrid gives us a strategy on how to evolve as an existing on-premise ISV towards the cloud. So look at the image here, right? Just like a traditional gasoline engine fueling the car, you can link that to your existing on-premise solution. Now, add in the battery, the service components, and the vehicle realizes additional efficiencies. This is really how we see hybrid working for existing on-premise software providers. Services can complement the investments you've already made, not only from your viewpoint, but also from your customer's viewpoint. So your customers are already comfortable and familiar with your on-premise offering, right? So by extending the existing values that your customers get with your on-premise offering, it allows you to reinvest and drive additional value from your existing customer base. This also helps to protect your existing maintenance revenue and helps keep your customers focused on the value that you are bringing them. Using hybrid allows us to ease the transition and look at how SaaS components can augment on-premise capabilities to solve new problems. These are two key strategies for existing on-premise providers. So let's explore that in more detail. Let's first look at how hybrid can help ease the transition. Our friends at Saugatuck have a great amount of detail on how moving from an on-premise to SaaS-based offering is not just like flipping a light switch. Let me first remind you that even if you are the business leader that is driving a SaaS initiative in your organization and you are comfortable with all the necessary changes, well, your customers may not be so quick to accept the radical change. Being conscious on how your cloud initiative will affect the mindset of your customers is really paramount to their acceptance of the change. Looking at the picture is a great metaphor for that. We have all had this experience of jumping into a cold lake and getting shocked by the difference in temperature. Instead, if we ease into that transition, it is a much more pleasant experience. Okay, so how do we help our customers ease into their cloud-based initiatives? Well, the first step is to maintain your current licensing model. Don't let the change of how you deliver your software initially change how you charge for it, or make the transition gradual. So for example, if you had an existing customer base who purchased their software under perpetual license agreements with quarterly maintenance, you can make the transition to a subscription-based model and align it with the customer's expected maintenance renewals. This also gives the rest of your organization time to adjust to the new way to do business. Now, over time, of course, you want to introduce new license models which better fit the service offering that you are bringing to market. So introducing flexible subscriptions, usage-based models, or maybe even with pools, this could be a unit of seats, or what we have seen with our customers at SafeNet is a usage tied to consumption of a functional component of your offering. So for example, if you are a CAD company, charging per design, or if your offering is a project management software, usage could be tied to the number of man days, weeks, or months. Another option is to align your business model similar to cell phone plans with overages or rollovers, really whatever fits your business best over time. And hopefully you select a technology that makes the transition from one business model to another seamless. So how do we continue to increase value from our customer base while moving to a cloud-based offering? Well, initially, offer complementary functionality. Really don't replace your existing on-premise functionality with a SaaS-based offering. There really is no additional value at this stage to lose your maintenance revenue from an existing customer and turn it into a subscription. And if your customer has to move and transition to this new offering, then it really opens up the opportunity for that customer to say, hey, if I'm going to end up moving, why not look around and see what other vendors in the space are doing? This sets you up for cannibalization. Okay, so next, increase the value of your on-premise offering using the hybrid model, which, of course, means extending the on-premise capabilities with service-based functionality. try to do this by solving use cases which can't be solved with your on-premise solution. For example, I was working with a client who wanted to offer offline storage capabilities via the cloud so that their target SMB market could purchase redundancy capabilities of their offering without having the infrastructure and IT staff to do so otherwise. Okay, once you have these services that complement the SAFF offering, then figure out how to create unique packages or bundles that solve specific use cases. For example, what I find to be true with talking with SafeNet customers who have really high dollar value applications is that you can start by creating packages for secondary or occasional users, repackaging your functionality to solve this segment, extending the value of the on-premise deployment while involving more users in your application. Well, let's look at a CAD example. So if I'm a product manager and I want to take advantage of packaging for a specific use case, well, I might want to create a collaboration package and offer it as an upsell to the designer who's working directly with the end customer. This collaboration package is a SaaS-based component, let's say, that lets the end user see the designs being created for him in near real time. Well, this adds value to the designer, of course, by allowing them to get feedback from his or her customer quickly, and benefits the end user of the design by offering better visibility of what the final product will be, and gives them an opportunity to interact during that development process. So as Saugatuck noted, the three major costs associated with moving to cloud really are people, process, and technology. So I wanted to share my experience of talking with SafeNet customers moving to the cloud and where they have seen these costs. So if we first look at the process costs in the upper left, we see costs associated with changes. The first common change is when you look to make changes to your service packaging. Creating the right packaging is really an art improved over time. As your offerings grow, so too will your need to adjust what features you're providing to your customers. Or maybe, as I talked before, come out with a new package specific to a particular problem. Another process burden that occurs is when you want to make changes to the business model. Now, when I say business model here, I'm specifically referring to how you sell and control the rights to your software package. Well, in both cases, you should make sure the technology you invest in to create these packages and control the business model does not require re-engineering to make changes. I know, for example, a vendor with whom we spoke with, when introducing new packaged offerings, so no new features, no new innovation, no competitive value, this vendor had to spend 9 months to get to market with a new package. For those 9 months, they were not increasing the value of their solution to their customers. All they really were changing were what features were bundled and how they were delivering those. Okay, so now let's look at people costs. We know that paper contracts really don't scale. As your business grows, if you aren't using technology to control compliance to your license agreements, you will have a substantial cost of auditing compliance, and really more importantly, after you audit, the cost of bringing your customers back into compliance. Well, let me tell you about a story of one of our clients, a very mature SaaS company that has been around for 10 years. They sell their offering into really large enterprise household name technology companies. When they launched their service based on who their target customers were, they chose to maintain compliance through the use of standard paper licenses. After a year and a half, they found it odd that really no customers were coming back to increase the limits of their licenses. So of course, as any of us would do, they went ahead and performed an audit. Surprisingly, they found that not a single customer was in compliance. Even the largest, most well-known customers were consuming more of the service than what they purchased. The cost here is not a technology cost. It's now transferred to bringing those customers back into compliance, right? They had to renegotiate their customer base back into compliance and had to deal with the disappointment from their customer base that they actually could get out of compliance in the first place. The second people cost I have here is slightly different. We know that the cost to identify and onboard customers in the SaaS market really doesn't seem to be different from selling on-premise solutions. The cost of sale is the same. But what we do see is that by using a service-based model, you gain more of a direct relationship with your existing customer base. So this then allows you to reach out and create programs to incent those customers into purchasing additional value from your offerings, thus really growing your revenues. So the cost to grow this revenue from an already established relationship, from an already established existing customer, right? The cost to grow that decreases because your service can perform most of the selling and marketing for you. Now, on the bottom of the page, we look at technology cost. The major one here is having multiple disparate licensing systems in your organization, driving complexity, non-uniformity of the data, equipment, and support staff to manage the various systems. How many of you have gone through establishing the business process for licensing, from, let's say, contract creation to delivery to tracking to upgrades all the way through, right? If you have, you know that the proper systems and training of your internal resources is really, really critical to your product success. Introducing cloud services should not really double your costs or increase operational workload. Make sure to choose and leverage technology that allows you to manage both your on-premise solutions and your cloud-based service offerings using a single provisioning, authorization, metering, and management system. All right, I wanted to first start out talking about customer intimacy by talking through what our objectives really should be. The simple question, well, sometimes not so simple, when selling through channels especially, is who are your customers? What have they purchased? How are they consuming your service? Do they know what they purchased? Do they know what upgrades are available? And lastly, do you know how to improve your offering? Well, these are the questions we really want to be able to answer quickly and easily at any given moment. Well, how do we get to these answers? First, let's look at what type of technology we need. Over the next few slides, we will walk through a flow detailing the steps to customer intimacy. First, a typical deployment here, scenario, is to have multiple service tier nodes hosting your service in the cloud. Think of this as your application running as a service in a web farm. At each node, you need to log all the events that are happening. ABC user logged into feature XYZ for some amount of time or so many executions. Okay, well, then we need to collect that data from each node into a single repository. Well, at this point, all we have is raw data, which is not really purposed yet to drive your business. The process and aggregation of the data is really the next critical step. We need to apply the business rules by which you interact with your customers from a licensing and entitlement management standpoint. By applying the business rules, we come to a set of information which now can drive the business. So now we have information we can act on, but the path to intimacy does not end here. This information is not really only used and useful to the software vendor, but it's also useful to the end user. This information can be used to interact and ultimately improve the customer experience through the service itself. Well, things like you could recommend use of a feature to the customer, suggest a certain training or help for them, upselling them on another module, or simply providing an asset detail. What have I purchased? How much have I used? Allows the customer to map the value, I've used feature XYZ 100 times this month, to what they're paying. The next step is to report the information to the vendor. This intelligence will be used to adapt your offering so that you can maximize the value of your services. This includes understanding where you should direct investment based on popular feature usage. Things like being able to proactively understand a potential deployment or training issue if there are too many unused seats in your customer. It helps improving your sales team relations by understanding how your customers are using your service and better understanding and being able to show the ROI to the customer. So this picture is a skeleton of really what a cloud licensing system will provide you, a way to sell your services, understand what your customers purchased, have your customers understand what they purchased, being able to interact with your customers, reporting business intelligence back to your HQ, and allowing you to cost-effectively adapt your offering to better suit your market. So, at the beginning of the presentation, I discussed the 6 main business challenges that we've been working with our client base to address. And so these are really the 6 main successful SaaS experiences that are required to overcome those challenges. Really, we see the first one as making sure you have the right technology to ensure service agreement compliance so that customers can't get out of compliance in the first place and you have to go back and renegotiate. Having the right tools to ensure the right product versatility so that you can constantly make packages to fit every market that you're trying to address. Having the right tools in place to have the correct business agility to make changes to your packaging over time. Having the right sophisticated license models, because as your customer base grows and diversifies, so too will their way in which they want to purchase your offering from you. Having the right business intelligence, not just a meter though, but also having the right business intelligence to improve your offering over time and get closer to your customer, ensuring better customer intimacy. And lastly, having a system in place in the back office that helps you manage both on-premise and SaaS-based cloud offerings. So at SafeNet, as again, we've been working here night and day, bringing together the solution, our Sentinel Cloud Services to these challenges. Sentinel Cloud Services really is a feature-based user provisioning, authorization, metering, and management solution for software delivered as a service. We really see this as a life cycle where the first step is defining your product or service catalogs, provisioning those packages to your customer base, having the right tools in place to control so that when a customer comes to use your service, they are appropriately allowed to use which features they purchased, having the right tools to measure that usage, not only for billing purposes, for a metered-based license model, but also to improve your offering over time and drive greater intimacy, and having the tools in place so that you can adapt your catalog over time, adapt the way you do business with your customers without having to go back and reinvest into your systems. Currently, we're in beta with this solution, and we really encourage anybody who's having these issues or planning a migration to the cloud to reach out to us and engage us, and we'd love to have a chat about joining our beta program to provide feedback on our service. If you wish so, please visit us at www.sentinel.cloud.com for more information and sign up. And lastly, before we head into questions, this is a slide representing other ways to get additional information that SafeNet provides on education around licensing, not just for the cloud, but also for on-premise solutions solely. So we have a blog site, we have Licensing Live, and if you have any questions specific to this webinar or any SaaS-based questions, you can feel free to email me and my colleagues at SAFF@safenet-inc.com. So Michelle, I'll hand it back to you for Q&A session.
Thanks, Mike and Todd. Great stuff. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind folks that software licensing and operations is an ongoing process, one that's in constant need of refinement and improvement. We invite you to engage with our network of software monetization experts anytime via one of our online Licensing Live networks, all of which are listed on the screen in front of you. Now let's open the floor to our audience and address your questions. If you have a question that you'd like to ask our presenters that you have not yet submitted, please remember you can do so by clicking the Questions button on your screen and enter the question. The first question I think is for Todd. It addresses how to the reduction of confidentiality in the cloud when moving to SaaS. And do customers expect to see some additional effort from the ISVs?
This is a good question. I think that the processes, policies, and procedures are really typically designed to distance the individual operational staff, right, from having enough access to have a negative impact. When I say operational staff, I mean, right, the operational staff that's managing the SaaS offerings. So really what I guess a way to summarize this is the ISV, of course, will have a need to have best practices, guideline policies, procedures, et cetera, to ensure adequate precautions to protect your customers. But I like this. I like this to. For sure, Mike, please.
Yeah, I mean, like, depends on what, industry you're in. I mean, you shouldn't expect less confidentiality or privacy of data in the cloud. You should expect the same degree. In other words, if you're in the medical field, HIPAA pertains. If you're in consumer data, then PCI pertains. If you're in the financial area, then, Graham Leach pertains and SOX pertains. If you're in the government area, then FISB, governs and so on. In other words, all of these privacy and security standards that have been put in place for on-premise operations are just as relevant in the cloud. And you should insist upon them from anybody who you ask to subscribe for cloud services. If they don't have them, then you go someplace that has them. These are the standards, and you should expect just as much privacy, just as much security in the cloud, if not more so, than you have on-premise. I mean, I've done a lot of study of, I spent a year at the Corporate Executive Board in dealing with information risk, and there are an incredible number of compromises on an annual basis. Millions of people are compromised on an annual basis through on-premise breaches, not cloud breaches, on-premise breaches, millions and millions of people. In fact, there haven't been any huge cloud breaches that even come close to comparing with the on-premise breaches in our supposedly secure on-premise data centers. But you should hold the cloud just as responsible for privacy and security as you would an on-premise vendor.
Thanks, gentlemen. I do have a couple of questions coming in, actually both around the availability of slides after the event. So this presentation is immediately available on demand via the Bright Talk channel you're logged into now, and it will remain available for the long-term future. If there's specific slides that you were looking for or any additional requests you had, please feel free. You can contact me directly at safnet-inc.com. Also, there's been a couple of questions about the name of the website for the beta software. It is www.sentinelcloud.com. The next question we have that came in, I think, is for Mike specifically. Mike, in your experience, do consumers generally feel as though they'll pay more for a cloud offering than they will for a hosted software than they will for the hosted software itself on premise?
Okay. When you say consumers, you mean buyers of? Can you clarify this with the questioner, or do you have like Well, let me just assume that what you mean is the person who buys the cloud solution versus the person who buys the on-premise solution. I mean, that's one reason why the cloud is so popular. If you're a customer, if you're buying a cloud solution, regardless of what it is, what you're getting is a service, and you're paying for it on a subscription basis. And that can be very little, depending upon how large your organization is. If you're a very small business, it may just be a handful of people And per user per month, it doesn't really add up to that much. And you don't have to buy all the hardware and software and get somebody to operate it. So it's an enormous savings from the customer, from the buyer point of view. I think that was the intent of the question, Michelle. Do I understand it correctly?
That was my interpretation also. If that wasn't what the questioner meant, please send another message in.
Yeah, so I mean, the economics of the cloud are really dramatic. I mean, and plenty of people have done ROI studies of the first 5 years of a cloud solution to see whether how it compares to the on-premise solution. And the areas of savings are, you know, you don't have to invest in capital for you know, hardware and software purchases that may exceed $1 million. You don't have to hire a whole bunch of people to run the thing. You know, I mean, those are the biggest savings right away. Well, what you do is you pay based upon your consumption, and some of it is transactions, some of it is data usage, let's say, or depending on the nature of the service. Some of it is a fixed price per user per month. Some of it may be priced on if it's an enterprise-wide kind of thing like HR, it may be based on the size of your enterprise and the number of seats that you buy in combination with that. So pricing is generally very scalable to utilization, which is not the case when you buy an on-premise solution and have to implement it and buy the supporting, you know, hardware and middleware and experts and everybody to maintain it. So it's a huge savings, right? I mean, that you've got to know from the get-go. And if that wasn't the intent of the question, I'd love to have some clarity so that I could answer the correct one.
Okay, thanks, Mike. The next question is specifically for Todd. It says, Todd, I've seen product managers ignore the operational aspects of their cloud offerings as they are working fast to get their products hosted. Then they end up with little controls. This is the problem Sentinel Cloud will address, correct?
Great question. Yes, indeed, this is one of the many problems that a licensing system really helps you to do, is from the whole life cycle of user service catalog setup, managing the service catalog over the time, user provisioning, being able to measure that usage of your customers of the service over time, and being able to adapt that service over time as well without having to go back and reinvest into how you're hosting and how you're packaging. So absolutely, this is exactly what a licensing system for the cloud is all about.
Great, thanks, Todd. So I think we have time for one more question. I did again for Todd. It says, Todd, in your slides you went through a flow of collecting and processing information in order to interact better with our customers. This sounds like an intense system. Is this something that we have to build on our own, or is it something that SafeNet provides?
Another great question. In fact, our Sentinel Cloud offering provides this as part of our licensing solution for SaaS applications. You could, of course, just like licensing for on-premise, go build it yourself. But again, why would you want to do that when we offer it already integrated in how you define and build your licensing for SaaS offerings?
Perfect. Thanks, Todd. I think that addresses all the questions I have submitted now. If any come in after the webinar, they'll come directly to our SaaS inbox and we will address them promptly. If you do have any other questions or anything comes up as you're reviewing a replay or after you share it with your peers, please do not hesitate to contact us. Todd, Mike, myself can all be reached via the email alias that we have provided on the screen, saf@safenet-inc.com. Thank you all for attending and have a great rest of your day.